Oh.
I have a lock on the door.
Yes, if I do that though, mine will scratch at the door. I mean, they will scratch and then they'll put their paws under the door and they'll like claw. And
Aw.
that's distracting. So
That's so
yes.
cute.
They got to get in. They just, you know.
All right, it looks like we're live. We'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everybody to the January 11th City of Auburn Council meeting this evening. Amy, would you mind calling roll?
Sure. Councilmember Berlant,
I'm here.
Amara,
Present.
Dowden Calvillo,
Present.
Riddell Harris,
I'm here.
and Mayor Spokley.
Here. Thank you very much for that. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and ask that we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. I wanted to, just before we get on to our next item, which is the mayor's commendations, I wanted to make just a couple of quick statements about what we all witnessed last Wednesday at our nation's capital. I'm sure I'm like most folks, I was just completely speechless with what I was witnessing. I think the rhetoric and the careless use of very powerful words is something that needs to be fixed immediately in our country. Words have meanings, and never more apparent than what we witnessed last Wednesday with the insurgent at the Capitol. Just absolutely unbelievable. I want to thank my fellow council members because we do a very good job, I think, at checking rhetoric and political banter at the door when we sit down for these meetings. I think maybe some of our representatives at the state and federal level might gain something, learn something by witnessing how small jurisdictions can come together, even if our opinions and maybe political ideologies are different. We can still come together and have a reasonable conversation. I think that needs to be a focus for the world, or at least our nation, in the years to come. So with that, I do want to welcome John Williamson, Captain John Williamson. Good to see you, sir.
Hello, how are you guys? Nice to see you guys again.
We are good. I got to say, I'm a tad bit jealous. You're retiring and you look awfully young to me. So
I'm still working. I'm not retired.
Good for you. Well, John, thank you for joining us this evening. We do have a commendation for all of your years of service. And what I'd like to do at this point is go ahead and read that. City of Auburn Commendation, Captain John Williamson. Whereas the firefighter profession is a noble profession, it is a profession built on integrity, honor, and courage. A profession made up of men and women who have chosen to help those in need and willingly face the dangers that average persons will never face. And whereas Captain John Williamson served our community and those he was sworn to protect with professionalism and exemplariness, Captain Williamson's service and career have been centered around the Auburn City Fire Department's mission of we are dedicated to fostering the development and safety of our community through the prevention, public education, and emergency response with pride and honor. Whereas Captain Williamson dedicated his career to the organization and to those men and women he served with professionalism and vigor, as well as shaped the future of the Auburn City Fire Department. Captain Williamson began serving the community of Auburn as a firefighter engineer beginning in 2001 and was promoted to the rank of captain in 2009. During his time, he served the city of Auburn in many roles and assisted in creating new programs to include interim battalion chief Safety Officer Intern Firefighter Program and the Greater Auburn Shaded Fuel Break. Whereas after 20 years of fire department service, all with the Auburn City Fire Department, with faithfulness and distinction, it is with honor that I, the Auburn City Mayor, Matt Spokley, impart this commendation respecting your tireless service. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Matt Spokley, on behalf of the Auburn City Council and a thankful community, wish to express sincere thanks and gratitude to Captain John Williamson's exemplary service. We wish him good health, happiness, and continued success. John, thank you very much for all your years of dedicated service to our community and our city. Do you have some words you'd like to say?
Well, sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the council and all the councils I've worked for over the years. It has been an honor for me to serve the citizens of Auburn. I'll miss it. But most importantly, I just want to say thank you to you guys and thank you to the citizens. And I hope nothing but the best for the city of Auburn. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do any of the other council members have something they'd like to say?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Yes, please, Councilmember Lamb.
I just want to recognize that this is a huge loss for our city, a huge gain for our region, though, as John is now Chief Williamson in the Placer Hills Fire District. And so it is a pretty big loss, but a gain for them. But I just wanted for the rest of the council, give you a quick picture of John recently in his devotion to Auburn. I remember coming by the fire station the day after, the evening of the fire that burned just outside of Auburn, that John was the first engine that went in there, protected a home, saved the home, helped stop the fire. And John, covered in soot, had a smile on his face, and he said it was just another day. And to me, that he didn't really, I think, understand, but maybe he did, but downplayed really the success he made, he and the crew, in stopping that fire, keeping it out of Auburn, protecting not just that one home, but all the others. And for John to downplay it, smile after a tireless day, I think shows the character of John, and a huge loss for the city of Auburn. But again, congratulations, John.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Councilman Dowden Calvillo.
Yes, thank you very much. So John, congratulations to you on your new position. It is a big loss, as Councilman Berlant indicated. We have a history that goes back a long time, 2001. And I was just as proud of our fire department then as I am now. And you've come a long ways. Clearly, your next position shows that. And we are going to miss you. And we thank you so much for your efforts, for your service, for your sacrifice. We're glad you'll still be in the region, but you're going to be sorely missed. So thank you so much for all that you've done for Auburn. And we do look forward to seeing you. Mutual aid. I'm sure you'll be around, but thank you again very much. Thank you.
Thank you. I am honored. And that's really, thank you so much for all the kind words. Thank you very much.
Chief Spitzer, did you want to say anything?
I did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your work and your effort. And, it was important to me to make sure that you were formally recognized for all the years of service that you provided this community. And so I wish you the best as you move forward. Congratulations on your formal appointment to Chief Officer. I look forward to seeing you on incidents as we move forward. And just thank you again for all your service.
I am honored. Thank you, guys. I'm really honored. Thank you very much for me and my family.
Thank you, John. Don't be a stranger.
I won't. Thank you.
All righty. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda approval. This is a time set aside for the council members and or the public to ask for removal, postponement, or change to the listed sequence of the agenda items. The agenda will be approved by a roll call of the council. Do I have any changes to the agenda?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, staff's going to ask that consent calendar item number 6 be removed. I will share with the council that there's a little bit of a technicality that needs to be done with the IAFF. on something, and that moving forward, we'll just handle this internally. But no disparagement on any side of it. There's just a technical thing, and the city attorney's given us some direction on how to deal with this. But item number 6 comes off.
Okay, thank you. The city manager is asked to pull item number 6 on our consent calendar, which we'll get to here in just a moment. Any other council members have any
Mr. Mayor,
changes
just
to the?
for clarification, for the city manager, I just wanted to understand, are you pulling item 6 from the agenda completely so that we're not going to discuss it tonight? Is that, or were you just pulling it off consent?
Completely. We
Okay.
discuss it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for that clarification.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion.
Okay, I'll move we approve the agenda minus item 6 on the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Before we go to a vote, Amy, did anybody submit a request for any changes to the agenda this evening?
No.
Okay, in public comment. Okay, thank you. All right, Amy, if you wouldn't mind calling a roll call, please.
Councilmember Berlant,
Aye.
Amara,
Yes.
Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Riddell Harris,
Aye.
and Mayor Spokely.
Yes. All right, we will move on to the first item on our agenda, which is consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved by one blanket motion with a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussions of these items unless persons request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for discussions and separate action. Any item removed will be considered after the motion to approve the consent calendar. As we know, item 6 is no longer a part of our consent calendar. And with that, I'll ask the city manager to go ahead and just give us all a quick overview of each of these items, please.
And John, you're on mute.
Mr. Mayor and council members, a couple of things. Item 1 are the minutes from 11 different city council meetings. So hopefully the city clerk is 100% caught up with all those minutes. They were great. Item number 2 is an extension of the local state of emergency regarding COVID. This basically enacts various emergency powers that the city can enact for dealing with the COVID issue. Item 3 are 2 planning commission appointments for both council members, Dowden Calvillo and Riddell Harris. Steve Galliard returns to the planning commission, and Mr. Glenn Kramer is added to the planning commission. Item number 4 is the second reading of the fee ordinance. Basically what this does is it allows for consultant fees to be incorporated within the city's fee structure when it comes for use with development projects. Item number 5 is the adoption of the recognized obligation payment schedule, better known as the ROPS. This is for the upcoming year 2021-2022. This is in regards to the former redevelopment agency that the city of Auburn has. I tell folks there's no changing this. The spreadsheets come from the Department of Finance. There's no modifications. There's no comment. So that's our ROPS. Item number 7 is the reserve police officer job description. We made a couple of updates. Specifically in this, we've made at least a better reference to how it applies to the Auburn Police Department. And also we shored a couple of things up, making sure that the training requirements were explicitly included. Item number 8 is the financing and purchase of 3 new police vehicles. We are moving away from the Ford Explorers. We're moving to Chevy Tahoes. The participation in this program is through the state purchasing program, which gets us the best deal on purchasing these vehicles. It's a combination of not only the vehicles, but also going through a financing program, which gets us the vehicles. If anybody's wondering why we aren't buying these vehicles from a local dealership, the reason is that number one, these are very specialized vehicles. And number two, this is through the state purchasing program, and the contract was won by the dealership in Elk Grove. Item number 9 is the expenditure of the funds for the fuel reduction efforts. This is going to be for the areas most notably below Aolia in Auburn. If anybody hasn't seen all the fuel reduction activities, it's time to go up onto Foothill Road or Forest Hill Road and go down the Stagecoach Trail. I can tell you that area is not going to burn. I think it'll smolder really bad, but the fuel reduction has been pretty good. And then finally, item number 10 of the consent calendar is authorization to advertise for the wastewater treatment facility project. This is the sludge dewatering project. It's almost a $5 million project. Tonight, staff is simply asking for the green light on taking the project to bid, and ultimately this will be coming back to the city council for authorization for construction. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on the consent calendar if anybody has them.
You're muted, Mr. Mayor.
Can't get through a whole meeting without doing that at least once. Is there any council members who would like to pull any of the items that John just outlined for us? Councilwoman Dowden Calvillo?
Yes, I just have a couple questions. The city manager and I have been talking about item number 7, so I just wanted to pull that off, please.
Anybody else?
If nobody has any other items to pull, I would like to share a public comment that was received on item 4. While it does not need to be removed from the consent calendar, a public comment for it was received. It's a voicemail, so I will go ahead and play that now.
Thank you, Amy. We'll go ahead and open up public hearing.
My name is Scott Arpston, and I am an owner of 85 Lincoln Way in Auburn, California. And I would like to show my support for the ordinance regarding fees. I have a project, 74-unit townhome development, which I call Auburn Sierra Views. And I would like to build 50% moderate low income in the mix. So I'd add to the things we're trying to achieve here in Auburn. And I would like to say I think it's a great idea to work together as a team on these development projects and reduce the risk and keep everybody in the loop, making good decisions all along the way. So I'm definitely in favor of supporting the ordinance regarding the fees. Thank you.
Great.
That's all.
Exciting.
Thank you very much, Amy. All righty, if there's no other changes, we just have the one item number 7 that was pulled. I'll go ahead and entertain the motion.
Mr.
I'll
Mayor,
move
with that,
approval
then
of the
I will,
consent.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar as amended.
I'll second it.
All righty, any other discussion? Amy, would you go ahead and please call roll?
Absolutely. Councilmember Berlant,
Aye.
Amara,
Yes.
Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Riddell Harris,
Hi.
and Mayor Spokely.
Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, item 7, Reserve Police Officer's Job Description Update. We had quite a conversation about this at our last council meeting. Alice, I'll go ahead and turn this over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The city manager and I have been talking about this since it's been placed back on the agenda. And I just wanted to ask the city manager, we were talking about the training requirements for level 1, 2, and 3. And in some instances, the regular basic course, a minimum of 664 hours of field training program is required prior to hire, and in some instances it is not. And so I just wanted to ask the city manager for the 3 different levels, which levels is it required and which level is it not required?
So I'll take a shot, and the chief's on, just in case, I'll throw it onto him. So levels 1, 2, and 3, level 1 being the highest, level 3 being the most entry level. To become a perspective, level 1 reserves can drive all by themselves. They can be a full police officer. So much of their training is required. It has to be completed. Level 3 reserve is entry level in beginning. Now, as somebody progresses, in order to be a level 3, even entry level, it requires some of the basic course training for them to be able to come in, with level 1 requiring it to be all the training to be completely completed. So, and as you move through a level, for example, a level 3 officer is not going to be fully out there in the field. They'll be riding along. They'll be going with the officers they just learned. Level 2 will actually be riding along with the officer, and then level 1 can go out and do it all by themselves. So the level of training required goes from not requiring to be completed in level 3 to being required to be completed in level 1. And why don't I throw this on to the chief, and if he has anything to add, he can.
Thank you, sir. I guess it wasn't part of the last meeting that was brought this up, but there are the different 3 criteria for each one of those reserves. Very much like the city manager spoke about, the level 1 reserve would be a person that could operate all by himself. Therefore, that's why he needs, or she needs, the field training program, as opposed to level 2 and level 3 will never operate by themselves in the capacity of a patrol officer. So therefore, they do not need the field training operations, nor is that what post requires. Is that what you're asking, Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So my point is that if it is required for the level 1 officer, then I'd like the language to say completion of regular basic course, minimum 664. And then we were changing the Auburn Police Department field training program, minimum 400 hours, and post-continued education. So essentially, the language before, it said completion in 2 and 3, but I want it to be clear that if you're going to be a level 1 reserve officer, you must have completed this training already. When you read this language now, it just said this training is required, but it doesn't say when it's required. It could be, you could be partially in, you could be almost done, you could be, it's not clear. And I appreciate this I'm probably going through the weeds for a lot of the council members on this, but given that I do these kinds of things on a day-to-day manner, and I require, my departments to be clear, I would be remiss if I didn't ask the city to be clear as well. So again.
Maybe I can answer your question, Councilwoman. Sorry, you cannot be a level 1 reserve officer without the basic course, completing all 3 modules. You cannot be a level 1 without the modules plus a field training program. And then post requires every 2 years for you to go through a 24-hour course. So you cannot be a level 1 without going through an agency's field training program.
So then I would, yes. And that's clear, and that I get it 100%. So I simply would like to change that language to say completion of. Right now it says regular basic course. And I'd like to add the word completion of. That way it's clear that you have to have that training before you're hired into that level 1 position. Now, if you don't have to have the training requirements completed before you're hired in the 2nd or the 3rd levels, then I'm okay with leaving that language there. But if you tell me that in order to be a 2 or a 3, you must have already completed the training language that's listed, then we need to change that language too. We want to have flexibility, and I get that too, but so you just need to tell me, it sounds like for a 3, You don't have to have completed that. So if you don't have to have completed the post regular basic course level 3, module 3 training, you can be hired and then take it, then I'm fine with the language for level 3.
So now that I know what you're talking about, and adding those 2 words that says completion of these things is not a problem. I mean, that's just already provides the guidelines of what we're supposed to do, which is this was taken from posts themselves. But if we want to make short order out of this, I can certainly add the completion of those components for each one of those under training requirements under 1, 2, and 3. If that makes it sound clear.
That's what I just, exactly.
Okay.
If it's required that it already be completed before they come in, then I just want to say the completion of. So it's clear to folks what's expected of them to already have before they are hired into the position. So Chief, if you're saying that under each of those requirements for the training requirements, it's required, then when we're ready to make a motion, I'll make a motion to make that amendment. That concludes my questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other council members have any questions on this item? Okay, seeing none. Councilwoman Amaro?
I just want to ask the attorney, if those changes, does that change what we're trying to do, making those simple changes?
You have the authority to make the changes this evening because the agenda title is broad enough to do it. So as long as there's consensus among at least 3 of you, the changes can be made tonight.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I'll turn this over to Councilwoman Dowden Calvillo for a motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I would move approval of the updates to the Auburn Police Department's Reserve Police Officer job description with the amendment to add completion of under training requirements for level 1, 2, and 3. And also to clarify that when it refers to department, that it's the Auburn Police Department.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Amy, would you mind doing a roll call for us, please?
Councilmember Berlant,
Aye.
Amara,
Yes.
Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Riddell Harris,
Aye.
and Mayor Stokely.
Yes.
Thank you, City Council members, for allowing me to tweak that.
Thank you, Alice. Appreciate your thoroughness. Next item on our agenda is public comment. This is a time provided so that the public may speak to the council on items not on the agenda. Please make your comments as brief as possible. The council cannot act on items not included on the agenda. However, the items will be automatically referred to staff. Please speak your name, spell your name, and provide your address if you desire. Council members shall have an option to speak for 30 seconds on any item not on this agenda. Do we have any council, any of the council that want to speak under public comment? Councilwoman Dowden Calvillo.
Yes, I had a couple of things. First, I wanted to simply request that we adjourn tonight's meeting in honor of Navy sailor Kendall Marie Shelley, who lost her life in December. She was in the active duty U.S. Navy for 8 years. And I'd like to request that we adjourn in her memory tonight. She is Auburn's own as well. The second thing I wanted to mention is I wanted to request that for an upcoming council meeting that we agendize the consideration of a letter of support to Caltrans regarding the removal of the metal in the American River below the bridge. We got a newsletter from Park, and I know that Council Member Amara brought this up at our last meeting, that they are pursuing the removal of that metal. And I think that it would be advantageous to have a letter in support of those efforts to Caltrans. Certainly, Caltrans should be responsible financially for removing that metal, but it wasn't removed back in 1965 when the bridge washed out, because the thought was that the Auburn Dam would cover it by hundreds of feet. But clearly that hasn't happened, and the metal remains in the river as a public health and safety threat. And then lastly, I wanted to congratulate Ann Trayson, Auburn's own. She was just recently inducted into the Ultra Running Hall of Fame. You may know she's won the Western States Women's 14 times. but she's done so many other things on the endurance realm. The International Ultra Running Hall of Fame only inducts one individual each year. And so this year, Anne was their pick. She became eligible for induction this year for the first time. So kudos to her as well, another Auburnite that does incredibly well. So those are the three comments that I had, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councilwoman Amaro.
Yes, I would just like to add that I would be supportive of being the second council member who would like to agendize the putting the letter that Councilwoman Alice Dowden Cavillo suggested with regard to the cleanup of the cement in the river down at the confluence.
Thank you for that. Councilman Blank.
Thank you. I will third it if it's even needed to add that discussion. But I just want to take a quick opportunity and recognize Saturday being National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day and take an opportunity to recognize the hardworking men and women of the Auburn Police Department. These are some challenging times, especially for our law enforcement officers. There's a lot of need for reforms, a lot of need for extra transparency. And as I did on Saturday, extend that appreciation to Chief Canan, who has already, I think, brought the city of Auburn several steps ahead of the nation in many of these requests to see change. And so just want to take an opportunity to thank our men and women who wear the badge every day. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Councilwoman Riddell Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge all of the Capitol Police. I know that this was discussed earlier, but having worked in the Capitol for a year and been in those halls, I take it very personally what happened last week. And I know that several of my former coworkers were in the building at the time, and it was a very scary experience for them, but the Capitol Police did a great job of protecting everyone in that building. And I think that they need to be acknowledged, and also to acknowledge Officer Brian Sicknick, who lost his life in that attack last week. I think that's very important that we acknowledge those officers who, even though they were vastly outnumbered, really did make a valiant effort to save all the people in that building, and they did a wonderful job.
Yes, agreed. Thank you for that. All righty. Amy, I think we have some public comment this evening?
Yes, I have 2 written public comments. Where did they go?
And these were both sent out to the council prior to
Yes.
the meeting tonight.
Both of these emails were received prior to the meeting and sent to the city council, and they're available in my office for review. This one in particular has a flyer with it, which will be shown on the next page. And staff note on this public comment, the author of it was notified that this is out of the city's jurisdiction, but that it would still be shared tonight at tonight's meeting as he wished. And that completes public comment for tonight.
Thank you for that, Amy. All right, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is our first council business item, item 12, presentation by Streetscape History and Arts Advisory Committee.
And as I bring those 2 committee members in, I will just introduce it quickly. This is purely an informational item to both reintroduce and introduce members of the SHAC, discuss their process and their mission, and for them to answer any questions that you may have. I have Chris Packard and Bridget Powers from the Shack Committee that will be presenting tonight.
Excellent. We'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Bridget. Good to see you. And Chris, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much. I miss you all. But I'm glad I'm on this side and you're on that side. I appreciate all your work. The purpose of the meeting today is for Chris and I to kind of talk to the council a little bit about the history. I believe you've been given a written agenda that Chris planned and prepared that talked about some of the history of what the Shack and what the Shack is all about. And before I get started, I just want to say Chris Packard's been our chair, the head of the Shack now, I think for 3 to 4 years now. And he's done a really good job, and we've streamlined the Shack and how the Shack operates to make it easy for you as a council when we bring tiles forth to you. So what we kind of wanted to talk to you about today is some things that were discussed in the past that, because I think a lot of you council members haven't, some of you are newer, and the Shack was formed long before you got on to the council. And we just wanted to put you up to date on the direction that was given to us from the city council so many years ago that we're continuing to do. And then we look forward to some input from you if you feel like we should make some changes. So I know you have a long agenda, and Chris and I will try and make it as brief as possible, but we have a few points we want to get to. And one of them is the reason that the Shack was started was during the whole streetscape plan, which was going to be a 9-phase program. It became apparent that we were going to need another committee that would help place tiles and how those tiles would get placed to honor those from our way back history and then current things that are happening now, not just people, but really other things, the Kiwanis, other things in our community that would help with someone walking around and looking at the tiles, find the history. So through our streamlining of the process, when it first started, we were, oh, you have to have a special meeting because we want this tile and we have to get it on in a certain timeline and deadlines. And it became very arduous for the Shack committee to be productive. So we changed how the program worked on when we presented to you as a city council to make it easier for you as well. So twice a year, we present tiles to you, the council, for approval. Prior to you even seeing those tiles or receiving those tiles, we have gone through a long, detailed process with the applicant who's making the nomination for the tiles and helping them design and create what the tile is going to look like. And Lee Buckingham also gets great kudos on our committee for doing a really good job in helping us with the wording and making those tiles look great. We've also archived every single tile. Christopher has a whole database of where the tiles are located. And so the reason we made it only for twice a year was it was just really difficult for us. And so we streamlined it with your support and approval. And then the other thing that started to happen on the Shack committee was we were placing all of the current new tiles, and we were not doing what it was meant to do. And it was pointed out by our city historian and also a Shack committee member, April McDonald, that we weren't placing historic tiles. So we started with a pricing. Normally the tiles used to cost about $750 or so. They've actually gone up since then. And so anyone who applied for a nomination paid $1,500 so that we could place an historic tile from someone in the past, like Rattlesnake Dick, who doesn't have any heirs or anyone that's here to bring forth and help pay and support these tile placements. And so what was put into place is it's $1,500 for a tile. And then we at the Shack committee, along with the tile that's being suggested by someone in the community, also did and historic tile that we presented to you at the same time. And we do it twice a year, and that is in your agenda, what that timeline is. And I know Christopher will have plenty of comments because I'm going to forget something on what we're talking about. But the idea of the tiles was to make sure that we were giving a fair distribution to historical tiles, current tiles, endurance tiles, peace officer tiles, community member tiles, and that we were doing it right. Several years ago, we came to the city council and requested that we had a budget of $2,500 a year to help catch up to the balance of the historic tiles versus the non-historic tiles, so that for those, we have a huge list of approved by the city council historic names and events and dates of things that have happened throughout the city of Auburn that are approved that we don't have the money for to place. And so in addition to that, we asked for $2,500 a year, and a portion of that would be used for a tile placement celebration as well once a year when we place some tiles. And we asked at that time that those funds could be carried over each year if they are not used. Because as you know, it's hard to place those tiles. Our intention is to place them in June and in January, and sometimes it's not till February or March. And as you know, our budget ends in June and begins in July. And then all of a sudden, all this money that we've collected from people who are paying half for the historic tiles, and then our budget, we didn't get a chance to use it in that year, but we still have those tiles to place. So we wanted to make sure that the council knew that we think there's some funds out there that should be in our shack line item that really was meant for some tiles that were actually paid by a citizen who paid to have a current tile placed. And we didn't get around to doing the historical tile as of yet. And so we kind of wanted to discuss with the city council, and if you had any questions, that process, because we know that our budget was reduced, and I can appreciate and understand that. I was on the council for a lot of years and know money's tight, but the SHAC committee actually put into place where we're going to be able to place tiles and place historic tiles. And we just needed a little more push in there so that we can place a couple more historic tiles. We also made it that we would place 10 tiles a year, 5 historic, 5 current, or some other, a citizen comes to us and says they have something. And so we needed those fundings in place to cover that. And incidentally, the cost of those tile placements has gone up as well. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Andy to see what that pricing is at this point in time, because we know it's more. We know as a SHAC committee, we might have to get together and talk about, once we know those numbers, that we increase that $1,500 a little bit more to cover the 2 tile placements. And I'm sure I left something out, Chris. So if you want to step in, I'll keep going. And I know you want to be quick. Anything, you're smiling.
No, you're doing a great job, Bridget. You are. You're kind of nailing everything. Really what this was to introduce, us, the committee, what we do, why we're doing it, and just kind of go over the process, which Bridget just did. And then the budget, of course, too. And then also, I just want to briefly talk about our vision for what the streetscape would look like. When this was first started back in 2009, this streetscape was supposed to be this large project that spanned from Old Town to, downtown business districts. And so we had lots of places to put tiles. Okay, we still have those places, but the project is, no longer, at least currently, not funded. And so we're in this limited space right now, and we're trying to do the best job to portray what Auburn has to offer. We've limited the amount of tiles that we want to do each year. People do just want to put them in, but we really want to leave space there. I mean, you just talked about a great endurance one that might come to us at some point too with the induction into the International Hall of Fame there too. But so anyway, the vision though, and this Amy has been awesome on. We now have a space on the City of Auburn website where all the tiles are currently listed. We're putting biographies on there. We'd love to expand that. We'd love to have in Central Square, there's kiosks that at some point will have maybe a QR code or something like that where you can go on and then see exactly, you're looking at a tile and it gives you 3 lines. Well, you want to know more about Rattlesnake Dick. So you could go on and have an interactive experience there with the website. And so what we're doing is hoping to then get that in place, which will probably take some of the funds at some point as well for some design. And then, eventually maybe as we, as a city, build out the zones, we'll need to do additional items like kiosks, signs, something in the future. But any questions on who we are, what we're doing, anything?
Real quickly, and then I'll pass it over to you, Alice. Chris and or Bridget, do we know what the current cost for the tile and the engraving is right now?
Okay, so when we first started years ago, it was about $450 to $500, and then it creeped up to $750 because Lee Buckingham's awesome, and so the rest of the committee decided we wanted to put symbols on there. So we have like rotary symbols, we have other types of symbols that represent the event or person that's on those tiles. So there went up to $750. That's why we came up with the $1,500, but that price is even higher, probably another $100. And so we'll consider, once we get the exact numbers from Andy, how much that is, but it's somewhere $850 nowadays for it. So it's quite a chunk of change. And if we're going to stick to our goal and mission to make sure we continue to represent the history of Auburn as well as current events, that we need to compensate that for that. Remember, before we had the AUDA, I forget the name, it's been a while, but we had funds from coming our way, and now we didn't. We lost those funds. What's it called? I can't remember it.
Auburn Urban Development Authority.
That's it. Thank you, Alice. And then that ended. We were fine. We placed several tiles. And then another thing that's on our goal is that we don't place every single tile in the next 10 years, because we want tiles available in 20 or 30 years for other wonderful humans who have done things for the community or events or factors like that. So that's what I know so far. Any other questions?
I do, but I'll go ahead and pass this off to Councilwoman Dowden Galville.
Thank you. So Bridget, you said you're looking to install about 10 tiles per year, 5 current and 5 historic. That's a lot.
Yeah, well, we were placing a lot more before then, and that was scaling it down. And I think Christopher will agree to that. When we first did the shack, we placed a whole bunch, and then we were doing for a few years more than that. And we felt like it was moving too quickly, and we're however many years old, and we're going to be however many more. 30, 40 years from now, someone's going to want to go, Matt Spokley was the best human on the planet, and he did all this for our city, and he's going to need a tile placement. And we didn't want to fill them all up.
Let me just say it's a maximum of 10 per year as well. Okay. We're not saying that we will do 10. I was just looking at the number, and right now we have, there's 118 tiles and we have 48 completed currently. So we have 70, and we do have some to bring to council soon.
And we have not done 10 a year.
How many do you have right down? I didn't hear, Chris. What did you say? How many do you have?
There's 48 currently placed.
And there's 78 to go.
70 to go.
70 to go.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. It's interesting. Thank you, Bridget, for the clarification with regard to the budget. I'm on the Auburn Endurance Capital Committee, and so we've had some issues with, with that, because we always put forth a recommendation for a tile or two from someone in that community, and they were talking about the cost and that they were offsetting the cost for the historic tile. So that had a discussion, committee-wide, which I'll address during our next budget discussion at the city council level, but thank you for that. One thing that you did say, you talked about the fact that folks are paying, if they're paying, not just for their tile, but the historic tile as well, there really should be a reserve account that's established, just like for the Arts Commission. And I think that to our city manager, we need to establish that reserve fund for SHAC, just like we have for the Arts Commission. Because if individuals are paying for their tile, or the Hillman Foundation is sponsoring or what have you, and they've paid $1,500, but SHAC couldn't get their tile installed in time, and that money disappears. That's inappropriate. So we just, when we're talking about non-public dollars, it's incredibly critical that we ensure those monies are reserved for that specific purpose. So I would hope that we could establish that reserve account, and then Bridget, that would resolve that particular issue, going forward, given that you're unable to get those tiles done and spend that cash. Now, rolling it over, that's a discussion the council can have, but absolutely monies that were paid, I think absolutely need to remain available to install the tiles that they were paid for. So I would absolutely ask the city manager to ensure that we have that set up. That's all the question. Oh.
Thank you. And then I would ask the city council to, I know it's an information only item, so maybe it has to come back on the agenda at a later time, but I would ask that the city council consider our very minimal amount of $2,500 a year we've been asking for placement of future tiles, that you maybe reconsider that in a future budget, or maybe there's a way for you to reconsider it now. It's a really small amount. We really want to have a celebration when we can open back up again and celebrate our city, and the history and the tiles are a part of that as well. And so I really appreciate some consideration in that manner.
And I think, Bridget, that the council actually did reinstate. I think we didn't touch SHAC's budget when we went through and adjusted the budgets for the committees. The first budget round, I don't believe we touched SHAC because it was just the $2,500. But if we did, we had reinstated all those funds as requested for the other committees. So SHAC should have at least the $2,500. And then in addition to whatever monies we'll need to, like you said, with Andy, you need to take a look and see the monies that were paid by the private sector. Those will need to go in as well. But you do have your $2,500 for this year.
Okay. And also, if we don't use the full amount in 1 year, can it roll over, or is it use it and lose it? Because it's really hard for us. We have 2 placement times a year, and they coincide with our budget, year-end budget.
We would have to discuss that as a council during the next budget round. And I know that each committee puts together a work plan. I think it's in May. And so I would highly recommend that you include that language in that work plan so that we can then as a council decide whether or not we're going to allow that variance and allow that rollover. But that would be the time for us to discuss it. Just make sure you put it in that work plan.
We will, Christopher, and our whole committee will. Thank you.
Councilwoman Amaro.
You got to turn your sound on, Sandy.
Thank you, Mayor Spokley. Chris, nice to see you. And Bridget, thank you for your presentation. I was just hoping you can go into a little more depth as to where are the tiles being placed? I know Tango and across from Tango. Have you expanded it or thought of expanding it? Is there any up at the clock tower or over where the that little park with the umbrellas? I forget the name of that park. Question number one. Question number two, I don't know. I don't have a feeling for where the tiles are being made? Or is this local? And do you get bids? Do you do more than one or two at a time so you can get a better deal? Maybe you can go into that in a little depth if you could.
Do you want to take that on, Christopher? Or you want me to do it?
Well, I'll go ahead with it where the tiles are. They're currently from the State Theater, headed on Lincoln Way there over in front of where Wells Fargo was. And then of course over in front of Tango and Mongolian Barbecue and all over there. And then across the street there in front of A-Town Bikes, Auburn Bodega, which that particular area there has been designated as the endurance area. We don't have any tiles anywhere else currently. We have explored potentially doing tiles that could be removed then when the sidewalks eventually get replaced. And so we have thought about that and we also do have, this original plan had zones. Because it was, an expanded project, we had different zones where we were placing tiles too. So we actually do have some tiles that were approved, and they're approved for other zones to be placed at a later date. Like for instance, in front of City Hall and the police department, we had a public service zone there. And the veterans over kind of by the Veterans Memorial Hall there too. So we have a big master plan, but now we have a small area. And so we're trying to fit, a little bit of everything within there. In terms of where the tiles are engraved, it's Rucola. I do not know if we went out to bid or not on that, but Rucola is who has been doing our engraving.
And I can answer, and another reason was we were doing 1Z, 2Z tiles at a time, Sandy. And sorry, Councilmember Amar, my apologies. And so we decided to narrow it down. So we're getting 4 or 5 tiles done at the same time, because that did reduce the cost, but those are the costs. And to further expand on Christopher's comments about where the tiles are in the streetscape overall plan, there was discussion that obviously we can't do that 9-phase plan that we had. And so as a SHAC committee, there was discussions of maybe changing some of the sidewalks in City Hall, in front of City Hall, when we were going to be doing some street work out there in the future. And that's all up to you guys on how you want to budget, how that could look. But that's where most of it was going to flow down there by the Veterans Hall, and then it was going to flow all the way up High Street for placement. So we had a wild and scenic placement. We had endurance. We had notable people. We had public servants and community leaders. And then we had, I forget all the other, there was like 12 categories. And we actually have a map of it all that you can get a hold of from Amy. I'm sure she still has that map. And if not, Christopher and I can get it for you too. So it was the whole plan that had to be narrowed down. And that was difficult as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilwoman Riddell Harris.
Mr. Mayor, I had a quick question about crossover with the Arts Commission. I was just on a call with them last week, and they were talking about the art inventory that they're doing, that they've just finished in the city, and how they want to put that online, and they want to have signage around the town talking about the different art. And it seems like there's a lot of synergy between that and the information that you're trying to get across. And I just want to make sure that we're not having 2 different sets of informational plaques and 2 different websites for talking about the interesting things around town. So have you guys been working at all with the Arts Commission to make sure that there is that communication, that you guys are both on the same page?
I agree that we could have more communication and better communication between the 2. There's a really good example of, we're here to place tiles, but we are considered an advisory council for history and arts. And we should spend more time maybe having joint meetings to make sure, but we really haven't communicated as well as we should. I agree with you on that. And I also believe we need to communicate a little better with the Endurance Commission so that they have a better understanding of all the different tiles that have to be placed. So we can reach out and invite them to our next meeting.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
So I have one quick follow-up question, and I think I understand. I just want to make sure my understanding is clear. So if I have or an organization has an endurance runner or whomever that they want to propose a tile for, and let's say they get accepted by the shack, the fee for that tile from that organization was $1,500, right? And that was at the time when the tiles cost $750 approximately to do. So by the group bringing an application forward and paying the $1,500 fee, didn't that fund the historic tile? Wasn't that the principle there?
Yes, we were behind, Mayor, in our historic tiles. We were so far behind that we needed to catch up. And that's when we came to the city council and said, we'd like to have some funds to help place historical tiles. And if you saw our list, you would see that we think it's an ongoing request and a small amount of $2,500 to offset an extra historic tile. Instead of 5, let's just say what we have been doing, 2 new tiles, 2 historic tiles, and then we add 1 more historic tile to it. And we don't have funds for that. And that's why we asked for it in our budget.
So based on the increased cost that's going on to get the tiles manufactured, one of the things we maybe should talk about is, do we raise the price for the tiles to $1,800 to cover the increased cost there?
That has been a discussion in our last few meetings, and we sort of realized that we needed to come and talk with the council about the shack. Had been quite some time about what your mission you gave to us to do and represent you and our community, and this increase in price is recent. And so we don't even have it on an agenda to talk about yet. I'm sure it will be on our next one, but I think that's the direction we'll have to take.
Okay, let's go to Councilmember Lant.
Great, thank you. And Bridget, thank you so much. I don't have a lot of questions because you have done a wonderful job over my 6 years of bringing this topic and working your effort to streamline it. So I feel very educated on it. I will note too, for the rest of the group, the map is on our city website. And so just in looking at that, and Bridget, some of your comments, just curious, knowing that the zones and the full usage of the zones kind of really hinges on city funding and redevelopment and reconstruction of many of the sidewalks. Are you allowing any plaques that maybe don't fit perfectly within the current themed categories to go in existing places? Or if it's a public safety one, for example, and we haven't got to the public safety zone, are you holding all of those until then?
I'm going to say one thing, and then Christopher has a better angle on this. There was one gentleman, David Albright, who we approved, and I still firmly believe that city manager, that we need to fast forward getting tiles out in front of City Hall. And that's where public servants, public safety, that's that location, that's part of that list. And so hopefully we can, whenever we're going to be doing some work there, because that's where I think it belongs. But Christopher can tell you other tiles we've placed that actually don't fit, but we've managed to make it work.
We would definitely consider. We would definitely consider putting them into the central square area there for sure. It really depends on the number of tile nominations that we get to, and then our criteria too for the tiles, which is listed on the City of Auburn website as well. And if it fits there, and we see that it's more of maybe a well-rounded sort of a tile instead of one that really was just specific to this certain area that they worked with Auburn in. But we definitely would entertain the idea of different tiles within that do not fit the zone. In fact, though, you know, the in the streetscape zone map, the central square area is actually, we had dubbed it the confluence, which really meant the confluence of all things Auburn. And so, you know, with that as kind of our theme for that particular area, it really could be just about anything.
Great. Well, thank you. And I guess I'll just voice my hope that the Shack can really spend some time maybe over the next couple of months, and hoping that we'll be able to do budget development as we have in the past, minus this current year with the potential recession, that we would look to you to make a recommendation on how to maybe change up the budget. And so whether that's a little more money, and whether that's ensuring that we have some level of a rollover program or something that ensures that you can save money. But I would just, you know, mention the very difficult decisions this year, obviously, with the lack of revenue and challenges that our business community has faced. It was tough to even give the committees what they had last year. And so I hope, based on the state budget being, you know, the highest surplus in forever, that maybe that would trickle down to us and we would have just as good luck, because I definitely would be supportive. You guys are getting a measly amount, but it is, you know, icing on the cake, and we need to make sure that, you know, the foundation of that cake is structured. And I think we're challenged there this year, but definitely look to the Shack committee to make some recommendations to the council and in the budget development. So I hope the city manager has, you know, we're not too far away from the end of this fiscal year. And so, John, I guess I would just make the note that I hope you're starting to formulate how budget development works in your process, but just note that in the past, each of the committees has come to a workshop and we've been able to hear them. And so again, hoping the Shack can come make some recommendations on how that budget you know, changes from the way it's been. But Bridget, thank you very much. And Chris, appreciate you guys' time and efforts to educate all 5 of us on the hard work you guys do.
And if I may just say, oh, sorry, Council Member Harris.
Okay.
I just want to say the Shack committee is awesome. I'm so proud to work with them and be a part of them. And I know you don't get to see them all the time, but our committee is hardworking. I admire and respect everyone on the commission. And I encourage, when you have an opportunity, to try and attend one of our meetings. There are Zoom meetings now, and you can see the dedication and the time that all of these members put in. We have a historian. I just can't even describe how proud I am to be a part of this group. And, you know, they're doing everything they can to be as fair as possible.
Councilwoman Riddell Harris.
Sorry, I just had one more quick question, just because I'm new and trying to understand everything.
Welcome.
You said that you have, you put the tiles in 2 times a year, basically one in summer and one in winter. Winter doesn't seem like it would be a great time to do that kind of a thing anyway. Is there a reason why you wouldn't just do it 1 time a year and get a better savings by doing all the tiles at once and having 1 celebration rather than 2?
I'm so glad you asked that question. Thank you, Council Member. There are events that happen for like the Western States 100-mile run. There's the Mandarin Festival. There's tile placement sometimes that the applicant has specific times that they want to have it placed because it's close to their event. One of our biggest things that happened early on was, I need you to meet this month because next month I want it approved, placed, and tiled. We don't get tiles approved in 1 or 2 months. Sometimes it's 6 months or so. And we want to do the best we can to help the people to get it as close to their events as possible without causing chaotic stress for everyone. And that's why. In the winter times, actually, we've had a lot of people come to the unveiling, so you'd be surprised. But good question. Thank you so much. And welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All righty, Bridget and Chris, thank you again for the information. We do appreciate it. It does sound like we're going to be paying closer attention to this in our upcoming budget process. So keep that in mind. And again, thank you both for joining us this evening. We'll move on to our next item, which is the city manager's report. John, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, just a couple of items to get everybody in the loop on some of the things that I'm working on. Working with the staff, trying to get ahead of what I think are going to be some big items and some big additions into the city budget. As far as what we call capital project programming, and that's the idea that we're going to start developing documents that are a little bit longer range views on various things, which will talk about streets and sewers and storm drains and other improvements. But the idea of actually having longer term capital improvement programs, something that will give the council and the public a view on not only revenues, but also on the expenditures on things. You know, one of the things that trying to get people in the public to understand governmental fund accounting is never easy. But the idea that people have an opportunity to see all of our major capital projects, the things that are in the works that are not necessarily happening this year, maybe 4 years down the road, but to gain an understanding of how most of our capital projects are very multifaceted as far as their funding comes from, and the idea that there is an incremental climb on some projects to get the money in. So working on that. I will tell you that I'm spending a lot of time on purchasing. And I went through and I read the municipal code about all the things that I'm supposed to be doing as the city manager. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that maybe reading the municipal code would be a good idea. And I did. It's great. It's great reading, better than in any of the novels that are out today. But got in and the purchasing, I'm the purchasing agent for the city. So a couple of things that we're working on are standardizing how we do our requests for proposals for both large and small projects, how we go about purchasing some things. I will share with you that the city has an extremely liberal purchasing policy, which I think we can improve upon from the standpoint of transparency, how we go about bidding and purchasing, whether it's services or various types of items that we're doing. So working with the staff on that. Economic development is really important. And I'll share with you that I get a lot of different things from different people in this community. We have very active business associations. I think we have an outstanding Chamber of Commerce in the things that they're doing. Today, I spent some time this afternoon in a day which was a tough day on a bunch of items, but I had an opportunity this afternoon to talk with some, actually a couple of businesses out at the Auburn Airport industrial area. And you talk about, you know, it's the Auburn Airport, and boy, they took me up to 100,000 feet on some of the things that they're looking at as far as business opportunities, business attraction, taking a more aggressive approach on, you know, what people are predicting may be an exodus out of some of the Bay Area region that could help us attract some really good job businesses. So working on that. I will tell you that I'm working with our employees and the whole issue of labor and how we deal with things, from everything from labor negotiations to just how we do a couple of items here. I've always really worked to have a very inclusive and participatory organization. How we deal with our employees is one of our most important things that we do. Our employees are very important assets to our organization, our mission as a city. So I'm spending a lot of time on really trying to position us to work very collaboratively with the various associations in the groups. And, oftentimes discord amongst the mission of the organization can be over little things where people are not listened to, or they don't feel that they've been heard, or they haven't been communicated to on various things. So working on those types of things. And then finally, I will tell you that last week, there was a lot of things regarding a loan that we're giving to a local business in town. The council probably knows about that. Everything was filed this morning. I learned more about our CDBG program, and I was amazed at how fast I was able to get up to speed on a couple of items that I knew nothing about last week. It was great. So anyway, we're going to move forward on those things. But other than that, I will share with you that the item that you just talked about is easily remedied, and we will do that. The one thing where you have organizations which take in a combination of donations and with some city outlay towards capital funding. I'm really glad that item was on the council meeting tonight. I thought they did a very good job of kind of explaining what they did. I learn something new every day, and I can assure you that as we move forward in putting together next year's budget, we can add a couple of nuances that will benefit each one of our committees that we do. Oftentimes the inability for people to look a little bit longer term oftentimes makes people spend, if people think that it's use it or lose it, that can be a detriment to some of the greatest things that you can do. And I think giving people a little bit of a stretch on some of these things is something that we can easily remedy. I've done it in the past, and you can have some amazing results from that. So that's the city manager's report.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. We'll roll right into the COVID-19 update. I did sit on the mayor's call last Friday once it finally got up and going. There's a little technical issue that we had going on. I think the county CEO was double booked. So we finally did get the meeting up and going. I'll hit on the highlights. I think we all know that the rules have kind of changed as far as triggers for reopening our businesses and our economy. That's still kind of a black box, this whole 4-week projection thing. And as it relates to ICU bed count is something that I'm trying to figure out better, trying to get a better understanding of what the metrics are for that particular threshold item. But I do want to have a workshop this Friday to go over kind of where we stand with things, particularly as it relates to the CARES $3 that the county has put out there. They've broken Placer County up into regions, and our application that John and Jackie put together was submitted. The county has it. The only real information that we've gotten from the county as it relates to our application is that they will fund some of it. It doesn't look like they're going to provide us all of the funding, but the timing of the funding is becoming more critical. It sounds like they're going to wait until they get applications from all of the sub-regions, if you will, in Placer County, and that, frankly, I think is just too long. That would be at the end of the month, and that's too far down the road. So Jackie Weston at the chamber and I talked this afternoon. We're going to try to reach out to our contacts at the county to see if we can put a little push on trying to get the release of those funds to happen sooner. It's paramount that it does. Some of the stuff that is included in the plan that John and the chamber put together include things like heaters, and those have a relatively long lead time. You can imagine a lot of the businesses that are hoping to open outdoor dining in the middle of the winter are all out there buying these heaters. So I would like to get together this Friday, and I'll work with Amy to get the announcement off, the advertisement out, so we can hold this council meeting. We'll do it the same time that we do it. We're doing it before with former Mayor Berlant's schedule, so we'll hold that schedule so everybody knows when and where. I did also want to talk a little bit about vaccinations. We talked quite a bit on the call last Friday with the county about vaccinations, how many doses have they gotten in the county. The total so far on doses that Placer County has received, as I jotted down in my notes, was of the Pfizer vaccine, they had 10,000 doses. Of the Moderna vaccine, they were expecting 10,000 by the end of the year, is what I wrote. I can tell you that the county has opened up a vaccine location at the grounds, which is at the old Roseville Fairgrounds. It's still only being administered to medical post-acute care. We're in phase 1A, I think we call it. Let me pull it up here. Give me 1 second.
Yes, 1A, yes.
Right, so we're in phase 1A, so it's healthcare workers, long-term care residents are also in phase 1A. The vaccines are going slower than the state has hoped. I think I saw over the weekend I read an article that said that of the roughly 2.5 million doses of vaccines that we got in the state of California, we've only administered roughly 1/3 of those. So the challenge is getting healthcare providers and nurses and other folks who are already stretched to the limits based on their daily jobs at our hospitals, taking care of everybody and the COVID patients. It's tough to find staff to do this. One of the things that the county has done, they've teamed up with local pharmacies and they're working on rolling out those programs. So Walgreens and CVS will be places that once your tier, phase and tier open up to us, we can make an appointment with these folks and go in and get our vaccinations. The county is doing, they have set a goal for 5,000 vaccines per week. Just to give you a little sense of what that looks like or what that means, the county's grounds facility is doing about 20 per hour, 20 vaccinations per hour. You do some quick math and you can see that for us to get to 5,000 per week, we're definitely going to need to partner with other folks. So that's certainly what Health and Human Services is working on for us here in Placer County. John, do you have any additional items you'd like to add on?
I didn't have a chance to talk with Jackie from the chamber today about the grant, but I think one of the things, hopefully this week, they'll know how much they're going to get as far as funding goes, and we will present that on Friday.
So Jackie and I did talk about that, John. Something happened. We're not exactly sure what happened, but the dollar amount total that they put towards this Care Street program for these grant dollars basically was the same. And then I think they divided the county up into, I think, 7 different regions. The dollar amount is closer to the 185 per region, not the 200 like we were hoping. So I did talk to Jackie about this, as I mentioned, and she did tell me that she has been in touch with the group administering these dollars through the county, and it sounds like we may not get the full amount. But everything's still in flux, and we're still trying to get some final answers from the county, not only on the final dollar amount, but certainly on the timing, because I think that's pretty critical for our businesses. Any questions from any of the council? Councilmember Berlant?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just curious if in the discussion of the numbers for the number of the vaccines being issued in Placer County, the numbers of what's being done at the grounds is important, but did they discuss anything about Sutter and Kaiser and their current administering of vaccines and how that adds into that overall number?
Yeah, they're the 10,000 the 10,000 doses. There's two components. It's the 10,000 doses that went to the hospitals in our region or in our county. Those are doses that are being administered to the first tier. So that certainly is a part of the equation, and those doses were sent directly to the hospitals, Daniel. So they're administering those as fast as they get them. We did talk a little bit, maybe that was a previous conversation, but I think we've all kind of heard that some of the doses, the vials that come out that have multiple doses are actually a little overfilled, and they had opportunities to get extra doses out of the vials for patients. So that led to the pace of vaccinations going a little quicker. I think we've all heard of some folks, friends and families getting vaccinated because vials are out and they've only got a certain time that they can be used while they're not in the ultra cold storage. So, but yeah, healthcare is a part of those numbers, Daniel.
Great, thank you. And then I guess my follow-up question to that, and maybe this is a follow-up for them next time you talk, but is there any discussion about providing those numbers to the public, just like they've done with the testing, so that there's some transparency in how quickly they're vaccinating people, so we have some idea of how we're doing as a county?
There is a website that the county is standing up. It might actually be up and running. I will get that address where it speaks to the dosing and how many vaccines have been administered in the county, and get it out to everybody. We'll have that for our meeting on Friday.
Great. And then I would just add one last thing, because obviously all of you are probably aware that I have been having discussions at all levels related to this county funding. And since we're just mentioning Jackie over and over and over tonight, I'll just mention Jackie one more time. And my advice to her was to really push back on the agency that's administering the funds, because the county may not even know, neither the supervisors, about some of the changing of the rules that are currently potentially occurring as far as how much will get funded and how much each region will get funded. And in talking to her today, I know that she hasn't yet heard back from them. And so I really encouraged her to really push at that level of the SBDC who is administering it, to try to get some answers from them before it really raises to a higher level, because my assumption is our Board of Supervisors isn't in the weeds of what SBDC is doing. And so hopefully the chamber and them can kind of get on the same page and then rally the troops if that's needed. So I just throw that out there, just trying to make sure that hopefully it can be worked out. Otherwise, it may require all of us to, once again, because it's continuously been something that county staff has not really wanted to do. But now it's not really in county staff's hands, it's really with SBDC. So look for hopefully Jackie to keep us in the loop on when that rally cry and support from us is needed. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Dowden-Calvillo.
Yes, thank you very much. So I noted that today our ICU availability rate was at 9.7%. And that is up a little bit from the 8th of, was the last time they actually gave us some numbers. It was 6.4 on January 8th. So we're up a little bit, every increase is a good thing. Also, I was disappointed to see that the federal stimulus, the second federal stimulus package, has no money at all for city government. And the first stimulus, there were some monies for the payroll protection. And unfortunately, it's my understanding we did not take advantage of that. And so I was really disappointed to see that there's no money at all for cities and counties, especially our size. So that's very discouraging. I don't know if things are going to change, if there's going to be a third stimulus package, but it would be nice if they could include us in that as well, as we have paychecks to cover. And we don't have a giant surplus like the state is experiencing right now, despite the fact that we're in COVID. So just those 2 points. Thank you.
My understanding on the payroll protection dollars in the first round, the city of Auburn wasn't eligible to even apply. Those dollars went to large jurisdictions over a certain number of population. I want to say it might have been 500,000.
No, those were separate monies. There was a straight allocation that went to jurisdictions with populations over 500,000. That certainly did happen. Placer County, I don't even think got those monies. The city of Sacramento got millions of dollars, and
Yep.
Sacramento County got millions and millions of dollars. Those were separate from the PPP. The city was eligible for the PPP. It just didn't happen, I guess, with the city manager, unfortunately.
That's my understanding as well, just to add in here.
Okay. Well, it sounds like the current program doesn't allow for it, but obviously if something changes or a new program gets released, we'll certainly be ready to go after it.
We just really need to watch that, because I don't know if anything is going to happen with the new administration in Washington. I've been hearing rumblings that they're going to increase the payroll for individuals. So I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, I just really want us to keep an eagle eye on that, because if there are any monies that we are eligible for, I want to take full advantage of those this time. So.
Agreed. Thank you. All right. Any other comments there? If not, we'll move on to council committee reports. I'm going to start from the upper left and work around the horn. Councilwoman Riddell Harris, do you have any committee reports for us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I met with the Arts Commission, got introduced to them and learned a little bit more about what they've been working on. The structure by the Chamber of Commerce, they were talking about the progress on that and getting the lights put up on that. And so they've been working on a process with the city for getting some of the changes they want to lighting and things like that done. They also talked about the Carnegie Library, and so I'm going to get up to speed on that project. And so they're making a lot of good inroads on different things. The park across from Avant Garden that they've been working on, and working with the high school students for getting some tiles put up on there and things like that. So they're doing a lot of really good work, and they finished the inventory on all the art in Auburn, and they have descriptions of everything, and they weren't sure if anyone wanted a printed copy. So if anyone does, they're expensive. They're going to print about 10 because it's pretty big inventory. So if there's anyone that thinks that there might be a reason to have a written or a copy of that printed out, let me know, and I can make sure that they get that to where it needs to be.
Great. Thank you very much for that report. Councilwoman Amara.
Thank you. Well, I attended the Downtown Business Association Board of Director meeting, and they work so hard, and they have so many things on their agenda. There's 14 items. I will be very, very, very brief on a few of the main items. So Jess, they have a Placer Wine and Trail Guide that they're working on and updating. The Lincoln Way one-way proposal, that has gone back to city staff, and that's on hold at this time. Then there's the Overstreet string lighting, and that was a proposal to take a bid to outline downtown buildings and roof lines with string lighting. And that would go from basically City Hall, I mean, ideally, and this is just in the discussion mode at this time. So City Hall through down over to Lincoln Way, High Street, and there was discussion about whether or not private businesses would be interested in paying, or if the DBA would fund and how much. And so that's in its infancy. Membership communication, they talked about, this is exciting and you'll want to put this on your calendar. They talked about a restaurant week where they have special menus, and all the restaurants would advertise their main menus, and that would be, the talk was May or September. So I'll keep you updated on that. And they obviously feature their main courses that they're interested, that they want to showcase. Then there's the social media assistance that they provide. There was discussion on that. Maple Street Billboard, they are interested in that. Many businesses are interested in that. They're talking about a joint use agreement discussion with Chamber. And they're looking for like a routine schedule so that they can feature some, try and bring in traffic from I-80 and around. Then they talked about, of course, the refurbishing of the East Placer Park. They painted the planter boxes there, and they're updating that park there. The Art Shade Frame Umbrella Park. The umbrellas are set to be displayed in May, and there will be a celebration for that. The challenge they were talking about was scaffolding. Is as you go by, you can see that it's high and requires some scaffolding to put items up there each time. One cost that came through was about $1,200 to purchase some sort of permanent scaffolding. But again, that's in its discussion phase. And then, finally, there was a proposal for new plantings and maintenance of the plants that are around town. There was a 3-page summary of different options so that all the plants can be updated and kept care of. If you go around town, you can see that there needs to be some weeding and some cutting and watering. So they're looking into that. And finally, the general membership meeting will be, if anybody's interested, January 21st at 6:30 by Zoom. Then there will be a Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting this Thursday, if anybody's interested, 1:30 by Zoom. Also on Friday, there is a tree planting by Sarsis at 9 a.m. And I think former Mayor Daniel Berlant will be interested in this because it is, the planting will be on Palm Avenue, Palm and Auburn Ravine behind the Fox statues. So they're going to beautify that. And the planting is to provide shade for the fish, but also to beautify the area. So if anybody wants to be there, it's 9 a.m. Also, I'm on the pollution committee for the Auburn Ravine, and there's been some more pollution today, but Officer Kanan, who is also on the committee, is taking care of that, and we're regularly meeting so that we can really get a handle on keeping our beautiful little Auburn Ravine clean. So that's all I have, Mayor Spokley. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that report. Next up will be Councilwoman Dowden Calvillo.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to mention the Auburn Endurance Capital Committee. This council had referred the water bottle filling station to that committee that was brought up by the young lady. We actually heard her. She came and spoke to our committee. The committee members were very enthusiastic about the proposal. I had suggested that we look at a potential pilot project at the Overlook Park at the staging area there where the horses stage, because we already have a water fountain there. So it's already plumbed for portable water. So we'll be working on that and hopefully getting something in the planning stages soon. We'll be working with PCWA as well. Also, with regards to endurance activities, I posted on Facebook, and I think some of you are following along, but we had a group of, there was 4 individuals. 2 of them are from Auburn. We had our own Tim Tweetmeyer and Elke Reamer, who participated along with Bob Crowley and Jennifer Hemmen along the old trail for the Forlorn Hope course, they were the splinter group from the Donner Party that came down in 1846. They thought that they would only take them 10 days to come down from Donner Lake to Johnson's Ranch in Wheatland, and it ended up taking them 33 days. And they actually were the party that where individuals crossed the line of civility and had to result to cannibalism in their endeavors. Incredible story of perseverance and grit. There were, I believe, 17 that started out on the journey, and only 7 that made it. 5 of the women, all 5 women made it. But this group, the 4 individuals, had done a lot of research for the past 7.5 years about the Forlorn Hope Trail and their efforts, and so they kind of reenacted it, except for they did it in 5 days instead of 33 days, and they had all the creature comforts of home. They had full camping and gear. Keith Sutter went along with them as well to document everything, and they've been on the speaking circuit with lots of different groups talking about their activities. They all carried with them cards of photos and facts of the individuals of the original group, the Forlorn Hope group. So it was a very emotional trip, but I just think it's just such a testament. This is in our backyard. I mean, this is happening in our backyard. So just wanted to mention that. With regards to the Pioneer Energy Board, we did have a meeting, and we talked about the fact that the weighted vote will be coming up on the meeting on January 19th. There was a little bit of issue there. The chairman, who is not in support of the weighted vote removal, was trying to suggest that we come up with some other hybrid, but I was very quick to inform him of what action was taken by the board in the past, and that we needed to move forward with that particular direction. So we will be considering that vote. It had to go up for a 30-day review, out for 30-day public comment, and we'll be considering that at our next meeting on the 19th. And so that concludes my comments for under this item. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you very much for your report. Councilman Berlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last month and then on Friday, the Greater Auburn Area Fire Safe Council will be meeting. We will be CCing the City Council on a letter the Fire Safe Council is sending to the California State Parks in comment to their master plan that they're working on, and a number of the fire safety requirements, or I don't want to use the word suggestion because it's a little heavier than that, but items that we want them to include. You know, this is a general plan that they're updating, and so they've really kind of waived off any specifics, but the Fire Safe Council will send its second letter now to state parks, really pushing on them to have more specificity to ensure that if you're going to increase the number of campsites, that there are built-in mitigations. May ask that this item come back and that we send a letter on behalf of the council to weigh in on it, because it does have a lot of impact on us. Mm-hmm. I'll also note for the group on this effort is state parks out of the governor's proposed budget will receive an allocation, should it be passed by the legislature, to do fire mitigation work on their land. Obviously, the Auburn State Recreation Area is kind of a hybrid, but hopefully they'll actually get some money to maintain the state park in our backyard. But just wanted to bring in the loop that the Fire Safe Council has been working on this effort, analyzing the draft general plan, and we'll be making a second round of comments here this week. I'll also note, just for the rest of the group, that at our meeting on Friday, we'll be voting our chair and vice chair. And after, I think I've been on this Fire Safe Council before I was on the City Council, so I think about 7 years, but I am really looking forward to passing on the chair, or I've been the chair or vice chair, I think, every single year for 7 years. Between former council member Hanley, who spent a lot of time, but I am looking forward to passing it on to somebody else so I could enjoy 2021. However, just so you are aware, I am also our regions, the Auburn area's representative on the county's working group for the countywide community wildfire protection plan. And as the current chair of the Fire Safe Council, I have kind of a role in helping us develop that. So I will continue that effort. So I'm meeting next week with that group to continue our efforts to strengthen and update the county's wildfire protection plan. And then just the last item that I'll mention is the traffic committee is likely to meet next week, and looking forward to seeing what the chief and city staff have in store. I will note that at our last meeting, and I reported out this sometime in the at the end of last year, but the traffic committee did hear from the Downtown Business Association their request to make Lincoln Way a one-way street. So not sure if that will be on our agenda, but continued discussions and the need for continued dialogue with especially the residents in that area, that effort. So traffic committee next week, Fire Safe Council meeting on Friday, and that is all I have on my reports. Thank you.
Great, thank you for the report. I'll be brief. SACOG subcommittee meetings are canceled in January. We do have our full board meeting the third week in January, so I'll be able to report after that meeting occurs. PCTPA is until later in the month, so I don't have a report there either. And EDC is got a meeting tomorrow. So how brief is that? With that, thank you all for joining us here tonight. John, thank you. Gary, thank you for joining us. I would like, as we discussed earlier, to adjourn this meeting tonight in memory of U.S. Navy Petty Officer First Class Kendall Marie Shelley. Good night, everybody. Have a good night.